4 listed there for the 15-year municipal long service. There's a special commendation, a chief commendation, to Jason Whitaker, and the chief will speak to it. But in the case of Jason, it's been an incredible day today with the K-9 unit, of course, but also with the long service award, certainly on behalf of the board and council and the community, just expressing our appreciation for your service to this organization, your commitment to the organization, and how much we appreciate it. So on behalf of who I have the privilege of speaking for, I say thank you, and I'll turn it over to the chief to speak to the specifics.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well, as Mayor Leonard has indicated, this is a great day for K-9 today. We had that fantastic badge ceremony a couple of hours ago, and it was so well attended. Many of you were there, and I know the K-9 members appreciated it, and I thought that the dogs held it together really, really well. So you got to give them credit. Well trained, and I think the handlers are well trained with the dogs as well. So I think they make great teams. But this is particularly great opportunity for me to thank Jason Whitaker, Constable Jason Whitaker, on the efforts that he has undertaken to ensure that there are legislated protections for police K-9 in this province, and indeed service animals of all types. So as a result of Inspector Edwards coming forward with a recommendation, it gives me great pleasure to award Jason with a Chief Constable's Commendation. I'm going to read you the details of it, just so that everybody's advised as to how much work went into this. Constable Whitaker and police service dog Brock have been part of the Saanich Police K-9 unit for almost 4 years. Since becoming a K-9 handler, Constable Whitaker learned that although there were criminal code protections for his dog in the line of duty, there were no laws protecting Brock or other law enforcement animals. In an effort to remedy the situation, Constable Whitaker initiated a project in January of 2011 to create legislation to protect service animals and prevent people from harming them. Jason started by researching the issue and learned that over the past 11 years, on 4 occasions, a bill had been introduced to the federal government. Unfortunately, those bills didn't go forward, and they failed for a variety of reasons. Jason decided the best way to get the needed protection for law enforcement animals is to create legislation at the provincial government level. He initially set out to seek protection for law enforcement animals, but soon expanded the scope of the project and attempted to include all types of service animals, including assistance dogs, who are trained to assist people with disabilities. And to that end, he contacted provincial agencies, including the SPCA, the College of Veterinarians of BC, and gained their support for his initiative. Constable Whitaker spent countless hours writing a proposal that would create legislation with tough penalties for anyone convicted of interfering, injuring, or killing service animals. With the assistance of Dr. Dave Kirby, a local veterinarian, Constable Whitaker made a connection with the British Columbia Deputy Minister of Agriculture, who was very interested in reading his proposal. The provincial government was in the process of acting on the recommendations from the Whistler Sled Dog Inquiry, and Constable Whitaker's proposal was a very timely addition to that legislation. As a result, legislation was successfully introduced to the legislature on June 2nd, 2011, and received royal assent, which is, quite frankly, light speed to have that kind of stuff happen. It was a complete aligning of the planets, and I think it goes to the absolute great quality of the proposal that Jason put forward. He had the approval of the BC chiefs and the BC municipal chiefs, and quite frankly, it was such a well-written proposal. You couldn't argue that there was any kind of a downside to it. It was really, really well done. As a result, the new section was added to the BC Cruel to Animals Act, defining a service animal, and created penalties of up to $75,000 as a fine or 2 years in jail for people convicted of harming them. For his outstanding initiative and commitment to creating laws in British Columbia to protect service animals, Constable Whitaker is awarded a Chief Constable's Commendation. Congratulations, Jason. Perfect.
It was, thank you very much, Chief and the Mayor, for this award. A couple of people I want to thank right off the top. First of all, my family. They understand what being a canine officer is, and it's an undertaking in itself, and it takes countless hours. They understood that this was going to take even more time, and they afforded me that. So to my family, thank you very much. A very special thank you to my direct supervisor, Glenn McKenzie. He trusted me with this while we represented this department, and this is agencies from across the province that actually helped create this. So thank you very much.
And the whole time I was doing that, I was looking straight at Justin because I still have a hard time telling the two of them apart. Well, another great pleasure that we have today are the issuance of certificates of service for members that have achieved a 15-year employment record with the organization. 15 years whistles by. I remember these folks when they joined, and it's hard to believe that 15 years has come and gone. So, folks, I'm going to briefly go over what some of your history has been with the organization. Come up and I'm going to give you these certificates because the next 15 years is going to whistle by even quicker. I can guarantee you that. So first off, Danny Froloff. Danny joined on 9th of April 1996, and Danny has served on platoon, just about all the platoons, A, B, and C, Street Crime Unit, Traffic, URSU, and now has been assigned since January 11th, 2010 to the Family Protection Unit. And she's doing a great job there. It's, I think, a duty that she has embraced with passion, and she enjoys it. And I know that the citizens of Saanich are well served by her serving there. So, Danny, congratulations. Blair joined on the 9th of April, 1996, seemed to have been a popular date. And Blair has worked on A platoon and B platoon. He's been on the bike squad. I remember when that happened, on youth section. And most recently, since January 14th, 2008, Blair has been working with the RCMP as our computer forensic analyst. And that is a job which confuses and confounds me to no end. It's one that changes on I think, a monthly, if not weekly basis in terms of the skills you have to bring to it. And I know that Blair, having read the reports from the RCMP, is doing an excellent job there and represents the organization in a great fashion. So, Blair, thank you very much. Corey joined us on the 9th of April, 1996. My gosh, that's like 3 in a row. This is a big day. Corey has worked on D platoon, on C platoon. Actually, he's been on D platoon several times. You must like that Delta squad. Bike squad, K9, and we all remember Corey for many years on the K9 squad, and has recently gone into the general investigation section, where he is taking on the role of file manager and disclosure, and those are huge, huge parts of investigation nowadays. And from all accounts, from Inspector McCall, he's doing a great job there, and I think it's something that he's going to sink his teeth into even a greater degree. I mean, once you're there for a while, I think. So, Corey, come on up. And I'm sure we must be doing this by alphabet because they all joined on the 9th of April 1996, it looks like. Berla's one. Berla has served in A Platoon, Bike Squad, Child Abuse Team, back on A Platoon, into traffic, and now is working on the front desk. Berla is our first point of contact. There's so many of the people that come in day after day wanting to see what we can do for them, and I know that from the duties that she's performing on the front desk and the favorable comments I get from the people, she's doing a fantastic job there. That's to be expected. She has a smile on her face, and she's always working hard to make sure that people are getting the service that they need. So Berla, if you'd like to come up, please. Nobody wants to say anything. Well, I started off with saying it's going to whistle by. The first 15 years, I'm sure, have gone by quickly. I can tell you the next 15 years are going to go by just as quickly. But thank you all for your service. Thank you for your dedication. And thank you for what you bring to the organization. It means a lot to us. I know it means a lot to the people we serve. So thank you very much.
So if you would like to excuse yourself, this would be a good time.
This is the reward. You don't have to stay.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Pat, you want to get set up for Project Sabo?
Thank you very much. Project Sabo.
Constable Mangan is going to be giving us an overview on marijuana eradication project that we assisted the RCMP with this year. It's something that we've been doing off and on for several years now. Every year around the grow time, when they're getting ready to harvest the outdoor grows, they come looking for some assistance from the municipal PDs, and this year Pat was the lucky recipient.
Pat and Aaron Stewart.
And Aaron Stewart. So.
Aaron couldn't be with us. So Kevin's here to support. Kevin's here to support him. Kevin always is it. Thought he was going to get away without me mentioning his name or something. You got it.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Mayor. My name's Pat Mangan. I'm from the Saanich Street Crime Unit, so I'm sure we're all familiar with what we do. For the most part, we're dressed like this and kind of fly under the radar, so it's nice to do an operation such as this where you get to sort of be out in some police uniforms and then working with other agencies. The opportunity to work with the federal drug section from Island District and meet some really good guys. I told my mom when I left Afghanistan that I'd stay out of helicopters, and then I said I was going into this. She was had her usual reaction. So, Op Sabo is an RCMP Joint Forces initiative. It started in 1989. I thought initially, from hearing it on the news, it was just a BC project, but it's actually run Canada-wide. I've got a friend who works in Cornwall who's just doing Op Sabo in Ontario at the same time that we were doing it. It's an interesting project because it's done with an MOU, a Memo of Understanding with the Canadian Forces. So we as police officers, primarily RCMP, but Victoria Police and Saanich as well, obviously don't have the means to fly into all these areas, do the Gulf Islands. We run from Port Renfrew all the way up to Cape Scott and then over to the mainland, Powell River, Seashell, basically wherever there's marijuana growing on Crown land. So for about 2 months before we go out, late August and early September, the RCMP sends out spotter helicopters, and they'll just find from previous sites or new sites, they'll spot the marijuana from the air. And marijuana, if you haven't seen it from the sky before, kind of has a bluish green tinge similar to the chairs. And it's actually, once you've done it for about 2 or 3 days, it's quite easy to spot. Marijuana plants are annuals. I think I'm getting that right. they will only grow for that 1 year and then they're done. The amount of bud that comes out of one plant is usually about $1,000. So since 2002, nationwide, they've taken $2 billion out of criminal hands. In the news, they were talking about the reduction this year from previous years. Last year, they got 30,000 plants, which was quite the coup for the operation. This year, they're blaming poor weather. The RCMP is obviously taking credit for a lot of it, saying that the work we've done has obviously scared the growers away. And while we were out there, we saw a lot more marijuana on private land. We saw a lot of covered structures that looked like there was probably marijuana in them. It was a good group to go with. We flew with 408 Tactical Helicopter Squadron, which is out of CFB Edmonton, and they spent the last 4 years flying fire support and helicopter evac missions in Afghanistan. So flying with these guys was pretty slick. They don't fly the same way the Navy guys do. We had lots of fun with them. Usually the helicopters are the Sea Kings. We went in the Griffins. The Sea Kings have a hoist capability, which means we can see plants. As long as there's a 6-foot hole in the trees, you can go down through the trees. Constable Holmes had that last year, along with some air sickness, I understand. Just what they told me.
Just the ones.
So for us this year, it was a little bit more work. We'd have to find an LZ where the helicopter could land, and we'd hike in for a kilometer or two. And with the fewer plants this year, you'd hike in for a couple kilometers, find 10 plants. Curse and march back to your place. I was told the plants this year were smaller, and that's attributed again to the weather for the most part. And what we were finding is we'd go in and we'd find 25 plants in one clump, and as we'd be walking out, we'd find 25 hidden somewhere else, and then further. So anytime you got in there, we were doing a bit of a spiral search to make sure we didn't miss any. The most we had was 450, and for the most part, Constable Stewart and I were partnered the whole time we were there, and we were finding 10, 12, 14 plants. At the top, you can see the Sea King helicopters with all the people around them. The bottom is the Griffin helicopter that we were operating in. I talked to Dean Jansen, who's one of our marijuana drug experts. The best he could say was that we've been involved since the 90s. He had worked on Operation Savo in 2000, 2001, and knew it had been going for a few years before that. It seems that there's 1 or 2 members per year. Sergeant Morgan from Street Crime was telling me that there have been a couple of years due to operational requirement, homicides, and different things that we've been unable to send people. But it's a great experience. If you haven't had the opportunity to be out and handle marijuana, it's a great experience for court to be able to say, I know what it smells like because I've cut down 1,000 plants. And the RCMP per diem and incidentals was nice to get. It was a surprise. Just did sort of a montage of a few pictures here. There's a video at the end that has some music added by the RCMP that might be a little bit loud. Myself and Constable Stewart, flying out of Powell River. So we usually fly out of Comox. We'd cross to one of the Gulf Islands. We had all our GPS coordinates already in our handheld GPS, and the air crews would also have those same ones on the onboard GPS system. So we do a bunch of flyovers to make sure as we flew over, we'd tag it and make sure we had the right site so they didn't drop us on the ground. And we wandered around, not able to find it. Marijuana obviously just in the center there, grows in little clumps, has a little bit more of a bluish hue compared to the other vegetation. When they're out looking for it, the plants are obviously smaller, not as bushy when the spotter helicopter's out. I don't know how they find some of them, because even when we're flying over, we can't see it, but once they put us on the ground, they're there.
How many plants is that?
Right there, that would be about 20 plants.
And how high are they?
We had them as big as Christmas trees and as small as maybe 3 or 4 feet. Varying in quality of bud that was on them. What we saw out there, which is a surprise, compared to indoor marijuana grows, often done from clones or cuttings. You won't see any male plants in an indoor grow. The female plants come in after.
Question here, Pat?
Sorry, do these plants self-seed then? Is there a chance that these are feral plants as opposed to?
There is a chance. More than likely what we see is we'll go in and the hydration will already be set up. So often if it's on a hillside, they'll have a water reservoir that's up higher with pipes running down into garbage bags that are set up with the soil in them. So my belief is that they planted it intentionally. I don't know that, we didn't find any just growing in a bog. Everything was actually in some sort of container. So we land. That's Constable Stewart, who's not a tall man, but he's a bit of a honey badger. He's a bit of a honey badger when it comes to getting through woods, so it's nice to just tuck in behind him and I'll go where you're going, Stu. So this was just a sort of an average grow. They'll often fence it off from the deers using monofilament line and chicken wire. So the distances that they're carrying the soil and the product is where we had to walk in. We're going in summer. They're doing it in spring, so before all the foliage is in, that sort of thing. So it may be easier for them, but even just the general volume of soil it's a massive undertaking to grow. Constable Stewart there about to cut some down. Me with a shaggy red beard. We, as Saanich members, just wanted to come up with something that's specific to us. So Constable Stewart and I would cut down every plant, but then we would leave one just with a bonsai head on it. And towards the end, every group was doing that, where they would leave one stem just for the grower when he came, so he could sit down and have a smoke or whatever he needed to do. Some people were leaving business cards, but we opted for the bonsai. I took some bee stings that Constable Stewart got on a video instead of helping me eat video of me being stung by bees. So while we were waiting for the helicopter to land, and the helicopters were good. They'd land on logging roads. They'd land basically anywhere they could. The air crews were great and very supportive. Long days, 10-hour, 12-hour days of slogging through the woods. Some places marshy with water up to our waists and beyond. But an absolutely great experience. I would recommend it to anyone, and invaluable in terms of just dealing with the drugs and being able to speak to the drugs later. There's a quick little video. I don't know if there's time to put that on, sir.
Are you able to put many of these back to the growers?
No.
Not doing that?
No. The ones that we were able to find on private property, what the RCMP will do is, usually the island drug guys, when they go over, they'll mark it. They'll go back on a later flight, take photographs, provide a will say, and then forward that whole package to the local RCMP detachment for their action. They're saying that action-wise, not much is occurring, unless they're sending it to a place where they're keen to get that sort of thing done. But our direction was, if we find somebody on the ground, we just take their ID. And maybe we can take it from them and hold on to it, and they can pick it up from the detachment and explain what they were doing out in the middle of nowhere. But we weren't there for real enforcement action unless we were finding growers actively tending.
The sites that are visited, do they record them and go back in subsequent years just
Yes.
to look to see if there's other
Yes,
more activity?
absolutely, and especially the biggest ones, the ones that they were finding out towards Port Renfrew and up around Duncan, they're frequently used sites. They may have moved them slightly in different directions, broken up the crops. If I could put 500 plants in one site and I'm going to lose it, the odds of me putting 50 in little clumps, and maybe the police will have time to get 80% of it, but I'm still going to end up with some product at the end of the growing season.
My son has listened to that.
Basically, when we're on the ground, our goal is to count all our plants, destroy everything that's on site. Some places we had timers, different things for irrigation, different valve systems, and lots of hose. So any site that you went to that had reservoirs and that sort of thing, we weren't leaving it in a condition that would be reusable. The marijuana itself, once you've chopped it down, it's of no use if it's not harvest time yet. If it needs another couple weeks to ripen, all we would do is leave it on the ground. If it looks like it would be ready to go, we would try to submerge it in whatever water reservoir was there and destroy it. So if somebody happened to be watching us from the Tulies, they wouldn't be able to come out and still use their product.
Did you ever have any sense that people had vacated just before you arrived?
Yeah. We'd had almost sort of a Blair Witch type thing where you start hearing snaps in the woods and you get a little bit like that. So Stu was a little bit jumpier than I thought he would be.
You were okay.
I was okay. Scared me a couple times. So that's an RCMP Sabo from a couple of years ago. No video from our year, but really an excellent opportunity, I think, for any supervisor who has somebody who's keen and wants to go into an investigative section, do any sort of drug work, maybe be a drug expert, that type of thing. I think if this opportunity comes down, and I believe the email comes through the chief or the deputy chief, I would recommend it to anybody. If I got the chance to do it again, I'd snap it up, but I know the guys in my section would like to do it too. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Joining our board meeting. Okay, we'll move through to the agenda, and I'd ask for a motion to adopt the minutes. Second. Any good with the minutes? Opposed, carried. There's one typo, that's, we don't require.
Okay,
No.
all right.
And that was Stephen Paul with me. So the canine report, for those of you, we did host it some years ago.
It was great.
Recommend we do it again. You're so inspired.
I'll second that.
Okay, any questions or discussion? Okay, opposed, carried. Orientation, Paul?
I think the new board members would have received an email directly as well, but just gives you
Thanks a lot, Pat. That was good.
a list of the agenda for October the
Thanks. You were
29th.
good.
And also attached to it is what what Police Services Division is looking at doing in terms of orienting new board members and the kind of things that they want them to undertake, and a tentative schedule that takes you through 2012. So certainly from my perspective, it's well worth attending, and approval for those members that wish to go, Mr. Mayor, would be in order.
Yep. Second. You good with that? Any questions you can ask?
How do we apply?
Go.
Yeah.
You tell your
legal
office.
time.
Sure. Yeah, tell the chief. Just
Don't go to them.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So then they'll handle the
Yeah.
registration.
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, you're doing the.
I'm going along to do the.
And I know
yes.
either Scott and I, or Scott will be going
Oh, excellent.
to do the chief side of it. I'm still trying to negotiate a couple of pre-existing conflicts.
Sounds like I didn't have any.
So I'll send out an email beforehand, and we can carpool and.
Did we carpool last time? You and I?
You and I did, yes.
Yeah.
Move on to first bearing.
Yes, it's good.
Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. Those in favor, opposed, carried. Commendation letter, is a motion of courtesy. Favor, opposed, carried. Is there
Desk Constable Stephanie McFarland, who is presently on the tour de Rock. We're in Couch and Duncan today. We'll be back on Friday. And along with Inspector Green, Constables Robinson, Murray, and Harward, Stephanie's been representing Saanich on this very worthy cause. In record section, we've hired 2 new auxiliary staff members to assist with backfilling and so forth. Aaron Mann and Ashley Wright. Aaron has a history with the RCMP in the record section, and Ashley is new to policing. Carla Baylor returned from Florida, where she attended the Versadex Users Conference. She was noting that down in Florida, apparently they're diversifying or decentralizing some of their large police departments, where they're putting them out into smaller community police departments to serve the community. Which is interesting to me, given some of the issues that we face. RTID civil fingerprinting, real-time identification, is proceeding well, and we'll be doing end-to-end testing with Ottawa in late October, early November. This will alleviate some of the pressures on the front desk with regard to fingerprints. Criminal records checks that we've talked about in the past, they remain stable, but we're still doing thousands of them a year. And this should turn around, as I mentioned, should shorten the turnaround time for those folks affected by the vulnerable sector checks. In telecoms, we're moving ahead with the second session of the emergency mental health presentations to the relief and full-time telecom operators. Their ability to assess and speak to folks with mental troubles is very important, and how they put the calls together and send them out onto the road is certainly a timely issue, and we're doing everything we can, along with the Inspector Prior's division, to support them in receiving training and dealing with folks that are trying to cope with those issues. We're presently running a full-time telecom operators course, competition, to fill the position vacated by Mrs. Vicki Mount, who resigned, as you may recall, in the summertime. We're blessed with a wealth of resources, a number of very capable and qualified candidates, and it's going to make the decision difficult, but that's a good spot to be. The IT folks have been busy getting their budget submissions put forward, helping Oak Bay with their budget submissions, and working through the deployment of the equipment that Oak Bay bought last year. I've been helping them find a third-party vendor to assist with installation. Scott Kent has also been assisting with the Regional Crime Unit purchase of their computer workstations, the Evergreen with that equipment. We're now confident that the CCTV system and interview room system is stable. We're ready to go to the next step, which is preserving this on the central network. We've talked about that in the past, but we're now confident that this system is fully functional, and a few last little adjustments to the configurations. We're happy with it now. IT's also been spending a lot of time configuring what's called a proxy server, which is a computer basically that sits between the internet and our interior computers. It has to be set up in a certain way to maximize the efficiency of our computer systems, and it's been a bit of a problem for them, so they've been testing and retesting. It's taken up quite a bit of time. I'm also happy to mention that we're moving ahead with the data warehouse project, and we're just getting the configuration issues sorted out. We'll be going to purchase different items that will support that project. We anticipate that the data warehouse will allow us to take information from crime and to analyze it in a way that it allows us to look at crime problems in the municipality and look at changes over time and so forth, so that we can engage in more evidence-based policing, directing control, and more timely response to emerging problems. And that's something that we'll be looking forward to see how it works when it comes online. As you're aware, as I've said in the past, it usually takes a few months to get all the bugs out and these things working properly. Just the nature of technology. And finally, IT did a presentation to the senior officers and the executive at our last meeting. In regard to the transitioning the data from the old network into the new network, the inspectors will be working with their NCOs and teams to look at the information that's necessary to preserve, maybe purging some of the old stuff, but coming up with a solution that works for their division, and IT will be supporting them throughout that process. Penny Waterman has created a survey for our users of the new applications. We've talked about Windows 7, Office 2010, the Outlook email system. So we're looking at who has what knowledge, who is an intensive user of this type of information, who may need some support with training, preparing for that prior to making the shift. So we're on schedule for middle of October, later October to start transitioning. That'll be a process that I'll be reporting to you all about for, I would think, 3 or 4 months to come. So you'll stop hearing about digital media and CCTV and start hearing about Windows 7 and whatnot. This doesn't get any better than that. And that's it, except for the couple of camera items. Thanks.
Okay. It's going to give you an update from the staff development division, and that includes our staffing and training section. So on the staffing side, just an update. The 2 new recruits that you all approved when I did the electronic poll last month, Mark Anastasiadis and Shannon Ogilvie, they did start successfully at the Academy on the 26th of September. So they're both doing well. We've had some good reports back on some of the exams and some of their physical activities, their training they've been doing over there. So they're into their 2nd week now. So by all accounts, they're doing well. Our other 2 recruits that we hired back in May, Nikki Hodgkinson and Peter Wong, they're currently just completing up their Block 2 field training experience here with us at the department. And of course, they'll be returning back to the Justice Institute for their Block 3 training, to complete their training. They'll be going back in a couple of weeks when they'll graduate in December. We'll have a nice ceremony over there. So at this stage now, we're looking at identifying 2 potential recruits for a couple of seats we have reserved in our November Academy class. And those recruits are being selected to fill anticipated vacancies that will be coming up into 2012. So I know there's new board members here, so if you do have any questions, I know I send out the bios to everybody, and I know you look at the score, what do the scores mean on certain things. So if you have any questions, certainly I'll be happy to ask them, because sometimes scores are kind of confusing. And 78% on an entrance exam is actually a really high score. I don't see it more than 80, because we have a 50% failure rate at the entrance exam, which in some ways is good. It's all about proficiency, and 70% is actually a good score, so you see that. And then you see some of their assessment scores. So if you have any questions as a member, I'll certainly be happy to ask those anytime. And then finally, on the staffing side, I'm working with some of the other divisional inspectors here for working on our transfers, final transfers, what the deployment sheet will look like for January 2012, which are our main transfer period every year. So that's on the staffing side. On the training side, obviously we're into the, talked a lot about the last board meeting about our increment and mandatory training days. There's about 10 of those different days throughout the fall as we go into October and November. And again, just want to emphasize that some of our strategic objectives for staff development in and around cross-culture and diversity training for police, we're delivering on a number of topics in relation to those things. So we're quite happy with that. We also have a number of other training initiatives that just are ongoing training that run the mill, like investigative courses, search and seizure courses, computer training courses, things like that. We have about 12 different events in October, 12 different courses, which affect about 20 plus different members that are scheduled for those courses. Also, something I'm happy to say is that Sergeant Darrell Harris was identified as our new successful candidate for our newly created position of the Response Options and Training Sergeant. And that position took effect this week. And so Darrell will be responsible for our use of force matters, including internal and external reporting requirements, as well as some of the training in regards to force options. And then finally, I'm also happy to say that in relation to the training on the mandatory provincial training on evidence-based risk-focused domestic violence investigations, that was one that was mandated by the province for all operational police officers in British Columbia. The provincial government through police services did conduct a review of the BC Police Departments and our CMP about compliance to those requirements, and I'm happy to advise that they actually sent us a letter commending our division and our department for that's just a snapshot on the staffing and training side of the department.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll lead off with some of the platoon business. Jamie mentioned that Carla Baylor had gone to Florida. I just want to add that Constable Paul Lambert, who accompanied her, Paul has a long history with Prime. He helped with the conference here last year, and he went down there. He's now working as a Prime training on the Prime training committee as our representative there. Good call. One file of interest back on September 19th, we had reported stolen auto. Turned out there were 2 stolen autos at the end of
detectives, and as I looked at this, there's certainly the theme of partnerships on this, so we'll run through this fairly quickly. The first is the series of robberies that we've been experiencing in the CRD over the last month. Just a recap, there's been 8, one in West Shore, 2 in Saanich, 6 in Victoria. And just to highlight, the first 3 were with knife, the last 5 with handguns. So when we see escalation, it concerns us, and we're making every effort to work with our partners, to work with West Shore, and work with Victoria to try to resolve it. No joy yet, but stay tuned. So we're working hard at that, and that's being done out of the GIS unit as well as with support of the street crime. In financial crimes, we've conducted on the 20th of September in conjunction with Patron Dornblut, who's in the crime prevention section, another of these series of lectures and educational components to the seniors group at the Salvation Army. And it's centered around scams and frauds, and to try to prevent the elderly, in this case, from being taken advantage of through internet scams. And another one with a little bit of a same topic, a little bit of a different group on the 28th. Constable Phillips from Financial Crimes and Constable Dornblut attended the West Bank on Burnside Road. We conducted a program there with the staff. So those are both things, or those are things that we're trying to get to as time allows, are part of our strategic goals, and as we get a little bit of time on our hands, we will be able to do that, a couple more of those. Street crime units. Steve Morgan's in the back here, and he runs the street crime unit. Those who are his fellows that were giving the presentation. So I don't very often tell you anything about what they're doing, because it's mostly, top secret and covert, and he'd really get on my back if I said too much. But I can tell you, again, along the theme of partnerships, that we've had a rash of B&Es in the 10 Mile Point area, Tudor, as well as in the border of Oak Bay Avenue. So in that vein, we've been partnering with the Regional Crime Unit to try to resolve that, and that's an ongoing project. Again, Street Crime Unit's been working a drug project with the RCMP at the same time, and all these go on at the same time, and they all have little timelines of their own, but we managed to balance them all. There's also an illegal gaming house that they've been working with, and again, partnering with the gaming branch, provincial gaming branch, to try to resolve that situation. A couple of SCU members have been on the level 2 undercover course that just finished up this past week. That is a very intense 2-week course that really challenges, and both fared very, very well in that, and qualified. As well as one member of ERT who's overseeing the basic ERT courses, Todd Lamb, who's the 2SC team, is going to be taking over as the team leader come the new year. So good for him. And lastly, the Family Protection Unit, down to 90 relationship violence files that they reviewed over the past month, which is